Hey guys, this is Mark Taylor from GameSkinny, and I'm here with normally a developer interview, but I guess we're talking to a former developer and now I guess a beer connoisseur, Dr. Greg Zeschuk. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Really happy to be here.
So basically, the normal format is I normally go down through 10 questions. I try to keep it short and sweet. But in the spirit of the Beer Diaries and a lot of what you used to do in terms of the tasting, which hopefully we can get back onto that with the beer pairings, is we're going to talk about, I guess, Hennepin.
I got the big. Well, actually, mine's a little different than yours. It's still Hennepin, but
Yes.
the Canadian label versus the U.S. label is different. Actually, I
That,
noticed that. It freaked me out the first time I saw it. I
that
kind of like your label, actually. That's the one I'm familiar with. So mine's still the same beer, but different.
that's cool.
Yeah. It's
Um,
localized to Canada. We don't like those fancy color labels.
so it's and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. I'm assuming it's French, but I don't know. A saison or saison?
Saison, yeah. It is French. It's a Belgian style, kind of like the part of Belgium that's close to France.
Okay.
And yeah, farmhouse ale. It's actually I really like this style. And I like this beer a lot. So happy to when you suggested this, I was like, yeah. And I can't always get it in town, so I was super happy. I just strolled into one store and I've been hearing it wasn't available, and I got it. I was like, yes. So now we're enjoying our saison. Not the entire thing because it's kind of a hearty drink. It's really not in one sitting, but it's a.
And it's a lot of it too. It's the size of my head.
This is technically called a bomber. That's one of the names we have for these. It's like a 22 ounce. So it's typical U.S. pint. 16 ounce. So it's like a pint and a little extra. So I'm opening over here. Hope I don't cause an explosion.
Sure, no problem. Actually, I pre-opened mine so I didn't knock anything or myself out.
Well, I was worrying about this a little bit, but I thought, what the heck? And I've got a fancy glass for it too. And again, this is one of those beers you don't necessarily need a fancy glass because it's kind of a nice drinking. It's actually the style of beer. The saison is like a really rustic, like farm style. So they're probably drinking it out of like little wood cups and stuff. So fancy flutes or fancy like glasses like this one were definitely not the norm when the farmers in Belgium were drinking this beer. But it's a really lovely, lovely, lovely beer. So cool.
Nice. So, what would you say is the first thing to smell it, kind of like a wine, and then
Yeah, so usually, actually, first thing you do right after you open a beer, it's best to smell it like immediately because a lot of the aromas kind of come off then. So, like you smell this one, it's kind of got like kind of fruitiness, kind of pears, bananas. Like it's actually kind of some of the chemicals called esters coming off the beer. So really, taking a big sniff, and it's just like, man, I just love this smell. Bit of lemon, it's really fragrant. Like this, like you have a mainstream beer, then you have one of Because a these, and lot you're of like, the wow, this aromas is like something. Um, and then the other thing too, obviously, is you look at it. Like I'm trying to make mine
pears,
glow here.
bananas.
Like it's actually
Ooh,
kind of some of the you kind of look at it, look at the head. I mean, when did you pour yours? I just poured mine, and it's going to stick around for a bit.
yeah, I poured mine maybe a second ago.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, I poured like a lot larger dose than you did.
Well, I can reload. And then just the color of it, the clarity, and then you drink it, and then you go like, and then really it's just, do you like it? And you think about not just the flavor, but how does it feel on your mouth? Like, does it feel heavy? Is it oily? Is it bubbly? Like, just all that kind of stuff. And then you figure out with practice, you learn how to describe it in a way. So this is a real great, delicious, kind of juicy smell.
So this is probably an odd statement. It's kind of heavy but light. So I guess it starts off very flavorful up front, and then it kind of finishes off very cleanly. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And what that is, it's actually a very sought after thing in the beer. It's actually a dryness, so it goes poof in your mouth. There's like the Belgians call it actually a vanishing finish, and a vanishing finish is something to be kind of respected. And this one has a vanishing finish, and it's actually because there's very little
Front, and then it kind
residual
of finishes
sugar.
off
Sugar
very
is what
cleanly. If that
kind
makes
of
any sense.
sits on your tongue and kind of makes it feel heavy. In fact, it's like the fact there's very little sugar in like well-made saison that just a lot of flavor, a lot of like fruity flavors and spiciness. Then poof, it's gone, and it's just. And I think I don't. Let me think. The dangerous ones with these is they're really easy drinking, but they're like 7.7%. So you gotta. Sorry for the beard close up. I was just reaching for my
It,
bottle, but
no, but it'll knock you out if you're not paying attention.
oh
Clearly.
yeah, kind of like not an empty stomach. But yeah, no, and Yeah, it's a really like that was actually a great way to describe it. Like that vanishing finish is almost the characteristic with the spiciness, very dry, very fruity, and great with food. This is there's one sushi restaurant in Austin that serves this with their sushi, and it's just superb with sushi pizza. It kind of cuts through fat or like the oily fish. It's really nice. As we both pause and drink our beer.
Was that like a perfect moment in time?
Yeah, that was really good. I thought great call on that one.
And then I guess it's interesting. You bring up vegetarian. My niece who lives with me is thinking about at least trying it out.
Yeah, yeah.
If I think she's doing it for health reasons, but I guess they also have what they call like a pescatarian, folks who are
That's kind of what I do. Like I eat fish and largely vegetarian diet. So that's kind of what I. That's actually kind of what I do.
That's cool. And it's interesting because the reason why folks that I know do it, I mean, I'm an omnivore. I got like a weight problem. I can't wait to eat, but the
A common thing about those of us that love life, I guess.
but that's interesting, and I don't want to get off a rant on it, but it's interesting about vegetarianism is there's so many different reasons that I know that folks do it. It's not just very isolated. I know people who do it for moral reasons or health reasons a lot. I know a guy who became a vegetarian at 15 just because he was just having heart problems, eating red meat for whatever reason. It would just make his heart freak out, and the doctors suggested that he go to that. Heck, you're a doctor, so maybe
Yeah, I quit because I didn't like I'd never liked meat when I grew up. I never liked it, and so when I moved out, I'm like, okay, goodbye meat. And I loved fish and sushi and stuff, so I stuck with that. But I just never liked it growing up. Maybe bacon's the only thing I miss a little bit. But other than that, I'm good. Like it's all like I prefer vegetables and I mean I love sushi. That's one of the evil things I enjoy a lot. But that's what it for meaty-ish things.
that's awesome. Though that's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna hit you with some questions. And I know that you've heard some of these before, and so I'm trying to not ask you like all of the usual questions because I'm sure a guy in your position, especially in the gaming industry, just gets bombarded. But I think that the clear one was, why did you leave medicine for gaming? Because I wouldn't say stalking you, but I've been obviously following you for 17, 18 years. You've been building and responsible for a large amount of the games that I've played the majority of my adult life. So obviously I'm gonna have read about some stories about you over time. So the big thing is when I track and I look at the interviews that I have seen and you give, is it seems like you weren't really in medicine that long before you kind of made the transition. So what was the reason that you were able to just make that leap of faith so soon?
Well, I think there's a couple things. It's interesting. One big thing about it's almost like it was a leap of faith, but I also had the medicine as a safety net. The reality was
I can always fall back on medicine.
fall back when I fail in games, and like I didn't think of success or failure with it, but I think when I went to school, like you said, it was a while ago now. Like it was in the kind of late '80s. Went to college, university, kind of thing, and back then there was no computers weren't even a career. Like there's no concept. So those of us that were kind of going to school, you picked kind of if you were going to university and you wanted a job after, you picked a real traditional kind of engineering, doctor, dentist, lawyer. You kind of had this sort of track in mind. So I thought, oh, I'd like to be a doctor. So I did that, and kind of during my medicine, we started making software. Like I actually had never thought of it, but they actually were. I played a lot of games. Like when I was young, I played tons of games. Like I like tons of Apple, mainly Apple, a bit of like early Nintendo stuff, but mainly like all the way back to the original Apple. Sorry, I should qualify. It was Apple II Plus, then kind of like Atari and television, and then back to early PC stuff, like early Ultimas and all that kind of stuff. And then when I go to school and they started showing us these medical education programs, they were terrible. And I'm like, wow, I can make something better than that. Like I used to kind of hack around a little bit, and so me and Ray and another guy named Og actually made something. Like we figured it out and taught ourselves and started making these things, and we were like, wow, this is really fun. And the weird thing was like when I became a doctor, it wasn't like I didn't like it. I was just like, I think this other thing, this making software would be more fun. So I thought, hey, let's just give it a try. Like we weren't those kind of guys that had like super complicated master plans. We were like, hey, let's give this a shot and see what happens, and we'll make some games, have some fun, and it just kind of went from there. It was remarkable.
Now that's one thing I've never read or heard is I didn't know that you kind of had the skill set or you'd hacked around or stuff like that. Because I didn't know exactly if you were the one or your group was writing the code or if you had.
Me and Ray could both program. We actually taught ourselves. We actually both ran like bulletin boards and all that old school stuff that I'll never say which one it was. But just
BBSs and stuff.
yeah, like and so if you in the olden days, if you had like a game on a floppy disk, you'd be like, okay, how the hell do I get this to work? You had to actually get in
Right.
sector editors and play with stuff, and so that's all. That was both of ours hobby. And so when we met each other in college, we're like, hey, you like that too? So do I. What'd you play? And then we just had Ray and I just so much in common. It was incredible, actually. We went through the same, totally separately in the same city, the same kind of things, and both of us actually had a bit of programming. It's funny because in retrospect, enough to be dangerous, but we weren't nearly as good as the guys eventually that did that at BioWare for sure.
Right, right. Well, that's cool. So that was actually going to be my next question, in which we segued perfectly. Was how did you actually meet Ray?
Yeah, we were actually. I remember we were actually inorganic chemistry in second year of university together, and so I didn't get to know him then. Like I just kind of met him. We were in the same classes, a couple of them, and then it was actually in medical school. It was first year medical school. We both got in at the same time, and it was in this. There's this thing in the University of Alberta called the Fishbowl, and the Fishbowl had like a foosball table. We both loved foos. We both got to love foosball, and they had video games there, so it was our kind of break room, so to speak.
Right.
So we'd hang out there a lot, and just kind of like then discovered that we both had these similar interests, and and they were fast friends from there.
That's cool. So I guess this is maybe a personal question. So I guess answer it however you will, or tell me to pound sand. But how long did it take to actually make BioWare financially solvent? Because normally it's like 3 to 5 years to break even, and then
Oh,
normally if you're successful, then after that maybe you can start seeing if a company's gonna make it. At least in America, I don't know
no,
about
that's
Canada.
I think that's true everywhere. Like, there's a lot of sort of misconception about people out there who start companies and think, oh, in 6 months you're making a pile of money. Like Ray and I, no, we were actually pretty open about this. We never paid ourselves a salary for the first 4 years. Like we we're kind of sucking it up, and it wasn't really until the original Baldur's Gate hit, and it wasn't even right when it hit. It was like a few months after that we realized, oh, actually, it's doing well. So this was literally 4 years that we were supporting ourselves largely on our medical salaries, and then went to sort of when Baldur's Gate succeeded. That
So
was really really funny. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So you were doing, so this, maybe I didn't know that. So you were still working as a doctor while you
Yeah,
were doing BioWare at the same time. I didn't know that part.
yeah, for almost 5 years. Like Ray was a little bit longer. I think it was 4 or 5 years. And he was probably 5 or 6. And yeah, we basically for the first 4 years didn't pay ourselves. We used the medical salary to both bootstrap BioWare. But it was part time, so you could work weekends, you could work nights, and then finally, when Baldur's Gate was successful, we're like, hey, we don't. At least I think I was the first to go. Hey, I don't have to do that anymore. Not with the intent of, oh, I don't like it or I never want to do it, but just like, wow, this Bioware stuff's really fun. I want to do that instead, and kind of focused on that as my main thing. For me, it was about 1999, somewhere in there. It was like within the first year of BG coming out.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard this from a number of nerds like me that that was the game that changed computer gaming as a whole for me because I was an officer in the army back then, and I got out and I was doing different things, got in the whole IT field, and that game changed it because I was one of those guys who played board Dungeons and
Yeah,
Dragons,
yeah, yeah, for the Wii. Yeah.
and so that game completely changed everything, and it was at that moment, and I didn't know you guys or if I was even going to be in a position I'm in now, where I could do things like this and reach out and talk. But I just knew, I was like, this is the turning point. This is that moment, like when you were a little kid wondering like if you're going to live long enough to see X, Y, or Z. You know what I mean? Like a couple of things. Like I was wondering if I was going to live long enough to see visual games like Dungeons and Dragons, which basically Baldur's Gate was the first
Yeah.
step, and then now like modern MMOs is that next evolution, or cell phones, like like you
Well,
can hold in your hand. Those are things I didn't know I was going to see in my lifetime, and that was
I
just a
remember
changing point.
like the Apple Newton. You remember like the Apple, like one
Oh
hospital
yeah,
that had the Apple Newton as their, like, we're gonna use this Apple Newton. And everyone's like, wow, that's so space. It never succeeded because it was too early.
right.
Like, and now, I guarantee to you, like every doctor's got a smartphone with a bunch of medical books, and it's amazing. You're right, like it's amazing. I think for us, Baldur's Gate was like our dream game. Like it was the one that really we just when we talked about making the company, we were doing Shattered Steel at the time, and that was awesome. Like Shattered
Yep.
Steel was a lot of fun to make, but Baldur's Gate was the one that really was a twinkle in our eye collectively.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Shatter Steel, but back then, I was still on active duty, and I didn't have a computer that could play it, and I didn't have,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So it was one of those things that's like, well, one day.
Well, then it's progressed so far. Like it's funny because we actually at BioWare, it's a funny story. We put Shattered Steel into a arcade game case.
Right?
Actually hooked it all up with, and so people could play it because no one, people, like all these people at BioWare had never played it. And so we're like, hey, and it was in the lunchroom. I'm not sure if it's still there or not, but for the longest time we had it running, and you like, it's really archaic when you look at it now, but back then it was like super state of the art. But it's
Oh,
really,
oh yeah, I remember it.
and it's amazing how far that progresses, right? It just goes, it's incredible.
Let's see. So what was your favorite game that you made? I mean, there was a lot. There was a lot of great games. What would you say was your baby?
That's a really, 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 really tough one, I think. Because I mean, if I was going to go with a pure emotional one, I'd say Jade Empire, just because in some ways that was the. And I know that's kind of weird for some Bioware fans. They're like, "Oh, that wasn't as deep," but I think the artistry and the storytelling in that one was among the strongest that we ever did.
I love that game, and I was always mad that it didn't get a part two, and I was always mad that it didn't get as much respect as it deserved because I played the heck out of that game.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the sad thing about it is it came at kind of the wrong time. Like it came right when Xbox was dying. Like you remember, like Xbox, like I think we released it in like March, and then April they said, "Oh, Xbox 360 is coming," really the sales just went. And then one of the main decisions I regret, and not that we necessarily could have pulled this off, but if we made that like a 360 launch title, it could have been a really different situation. Like taking a little more time. So I think we could have used a little more time to improve the combat a bit, and if there was some things we could have done better. But man, yeah, it was a fun. It was, and MDK2 is another one that was super fun to make. That was just pure insanity for like 3 years of lunacy. That now that I'm an adult, fully formed adult, I go, man, I'm never gonna do that again. Like that is not something I'll do again.
Yeah, yeah. When you were describing that, I was having flashbacks of Jade Empire. Was it 1,000 cuts?
Yeah, it's so fun. It was fun to make it. Like that was another dream game for both me and Ray that. We both watched like all these old kung fu movies, and we're like, man, it'd be so much fun to make one of those into a game.
Very cool. No, yeah, I love it, and I hope one day something comes of that,
No.
like a part two maybe. So what are you playing now?
I play a fair amount on my pads, my various pads. I was playing Game of War, which is like a pretty in-depth kind of strategy kind of game. But I'd say on the PC side of things, like I'm a big World of Tanks player. I played a lot of World of Tanks in my day, and I've got many tier 10s, and it's like this addiction where every once in a while, like they'll send me out hey, it's Veterans Day weekend. I'm like, that means 5x experience, and boom, I'm playing World of Tanks. So, but actually, lately I've been playing League of Legends, and it's really funny because I originally played it really early,
Right.
like really early, and I totally didn't understand it. Like I totally didn't realize, oh, you basically rebuild your character each match. Like it's like this kind of like session based game, and so it's funny because I actually now play it like, and but I have to kind of like gauge myself because I'm like maybe one or two matches, and I'm kind of like, all right, I could play a lot of matches. I'm just going to take it easy, not go too hardcore, stuff like that. I mean, I'm looking forward to like Dark Souls 2 and a few other things. I mean, we'll see. Like I'm pretty judicious about my gaming now because I got all kinds of stuff I'm doing elsewhere otherwise.
Okay. So then you retired. You and Ray got inducted into the what is it, the if I'm saying it right, the Game Developer Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we got a couple of those. Like also the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Lifetime Achievement. There's a couple of them, and those are really humbling. We're like, wow, does that mean we're done? Like we have to leave?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I felt weird kind of, coming up with the question because it's like, are you going to, be like Michael Jordan and come out of retirement at some point in time? But, but you guys deserved it. You deserved it, really, especially at the time that you guys got it. I mean,
Yeah.
after all the years of great games that you have done, I mean, it was fitting, especially when both of you had announced your retirement,
Yeah.
right?
It was kind of that was the end. I mean, that was a nice kind of capper for us, and it's been interesting for me because I know clearly I'm not going to make games again as like an active developer. I'm helping out friends. I got a bunch of Austin guys who've done startups. I help them out. Like I like helping out my pals that launch games, and I want to see them succeed. And I want to see, BioWare Edmonton's another example in Montreal. Like a lot of my friends work there, and a lot of the great games they're working on. If I could ever help, I'll do it. But I think all that stuff's in great hands, and I'm just if I can help folks, I will. But otherwise, let's play them.
Awesome. So then that being said, what do you think of the gaming space now? You've been out for what, almost 2 years now?
Year and a half. I mean, it's kind of year. It's almost 2 years in a way because I think Ray and I announced our retirement kind of October a year ago, but we actually that was already kind of underway. So it's almost 2 years. I was thinking about this today. It's super fragmented, like super duper, like fragmented, and and I reflect that in the way I play. Like I said, I'm on pads a lot. I mean, folks may watch this in the future and go, "What was that Flappy Bird thing he's talking about?" Hey, I was listening to birds, and keep going further and further. I'm 32 pipe gaps, whatever you want to call them. But it's become very fragmented. Where historically you'd be just on your PC all the time, your console all the time. But now there's so many places to play and ways to play. It really depends on what you feel like doing. For me. I find it remarkable because there's so many different things you can do if you want.
Yeah, I mean, especially, like you're saying, pads, just the whole, I think, at least in IT, they call it the third platform, mobile, cloud, big data, social networking. There's so many other ways to get drawn into the game. You play the game on mobile platforms, which you can take to, a static one. But then you can also get user feedback or user feedback loops through social media. And so there's all kinds of hooks to try to make, the game sticky, right? To try to keep them going, right?
Connect them up together, yeah.
So then the Beer Diaries. So what's going on with the Beer Diaries today? Because, I needle you, and whenever I pester you, I'm like, where's my videos? I want to see more videos.
No, you're dead on. What I've been doing is trying to find a slightly different home for them. So I've been looking at other places to put them. Like, so quite literally places like Netflix or other streaming services. Like I like being on YouTube, but I've determined it's very hard to make money on YouTube. With the kind of viewership I have I have a smallish audience, but it's very deep. Like there's a lot of folks that you believe me, you're not the only one. Like I get a lot of emails like, where's my Colorado shows? And
yeah.
And I think what I want to do is I want to try and find a place where it's got kind of a little bit of a different life than just throw it on YouTube. Someone who could potentially promote it with me and stuff like that, like to try and find a little different audience. So it's interesting. Like that's been like they're going to go out. Believe me, there's no question with that. It's a function of when. So that's the I think I've told a few folks that's the real inside scoop is when I find a home for them. And I've had a few people kind of interested if I can find a home, and if I can't find a home, they're going to go anyway. Like simple as that. They're going boom, they're going out. But I want to find a home where I'm in a position to do a lot more of them and kind of more of a sort of ongoing thing.
I got to tell you, I dig that answer because, peeling that back or pulling, going deeper, it's clear that you're looking at it from an entrepreneurial perspective. So, if I might be bold, it sounds like you're trying to figure out how you can turn it into something that's profitable if it can be, but then, not like you're trying to go for some stupid money grab, but it looks like you're trying to make something pay for itself and be a legitimate business, which is cool.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't even have to be profitable. Close, as long as it's closer than it is now. It is a labor of love. Like, at the end of the day, I've had so much fun talking to these brewers. Like, I really like entrepreneurs and I like kind of creative people, and I find the brewers that I've spoken to is just that's what they are. They're
right.
creative entrepreneurs, and they're really, really neat people, and I love being able to tell their story. So what I'm really looking for is a way to continue to do that in a way that is great and fun and all the rest.
Well, I'm still gonna bug you to come to the Virginia area. You've got friends in the DC area.
No, actually, I have a bunch of friends in the DC area from the Mythic days, and so and there's actually good breweries there, and so I'm kind of like, it's like, I guess, the realities in the U.S., like, how often can you say in the U.S. there aren't good breweries anywhere? It's really delightfully becoming very common everywhere.
Yep, yep. We used to be the laughing stock, I think, 20 years ago in terms of our beer, but I think
Well,
that's
actually, no, not even 20 years ago. It's funny because I had a friend move from Austin there, and he said it wasn't that great. Then these a year later, he's like, "No, it's actually good now." Like it's like I think you guys like I think what's happening is a lot of the places that weren't there have really caught up
right.
because people go look around the country, go, "Okay, hey, where's I'm the second in command of a brewery. I want to start my own brewery. What city? Oh, like L.A. You know, L.A. was hilarious. L.A. had no breweries up to like 2 years ago. There was one, I think Golden Road or and then now they got like 15 or 20. Like it was just instantaneous that a bunch of people opened breweries very, very recently there, as an example.
Well, to your point, not to belabor it, is people want to drink good beer now. Now that that they've tasted it, they want good beer, and that's the first thing I look for. Like because I travel a lot with my with what
Yeah.
I do, and so like when I get someplace more than a day, I'm like, all right, where's a microbrew?
Well, that plus, I mean, sometimes you get it's actually there's a nice community feeling in a lot of craft beer places. That's one of the things
Oh
I
yeah,
really do is there's like, if you go to a craft brewery, you're very likely to meet nice people that are friendly that are kindred spirits, right? Like it's very different than you go into a sports bar. Like they're like like it's just I don't know, it's just a really different vibe. Like I've always found them very very welcoming and the people just super cool and fun and just
well,
nice.
yeah. I mean, and usually they want to come and they want to sit down and want to talk about the beers that they've made or the different types. Whereas,
Yeah.
like in a sports bar, like you can barely hear yourself think, right? Okay, so last question, and this is the important one. So, what games are you looking forward to most in 2014?
Well, I'd say I would probably call out two primarily. I mentioned Dark Souls 2. Actually, sorry, three now. There's probably more than three. But the ones just really off the top of my head. Dark Souls 2. I'm a huge like Demon Souls, Dark Souls fan. I love that game. I love the punitive nature and the punishing gameplay, but I just still like I don't care. I got I love figuring out how to solve that stuff. I think Titanfall looks incredibly interesting.
Yes.
That looks actually. Then I got to add Destiny as well. So Destiny's another one because I'm really curious how those guys kind of take the. I actually, having made games, understand the inherent challenge to the shooter MMO kind of thing. Like that's super complicated. I think we've all seen games that have tried to tackle that and have not done that well. And then really, I mean, the new Elder Scrolls Online. I think that one's gonna be very interesting. I'd love to. I know a lot of folks from the BioWare Austin studio there, Mythic Studio. A lot of people I know. So wishing the best for them and looking forward to that. So those are the main. I'd say the main ones. Like I mean, there's so many. Like it's like I said, it's really weird on a when you start going cutting across all these platforms. But staying maybe slightly more traditional on the PC console vein. That's my stuff I'm looking forward to.
That's cool. Well, very cool. I'm gonna wrap this up, and hopefully you'll stay on the line as I close the stream down. But thanks
Yeah.
so much for taking the time to sit down and chat about this. I learned a lot about you that I didn't know, and I've read about you for over a decade, literally.
Yeah, no, cool, man. It's been fun. I mean, this always it's interesting because I think also you were talking earlier about the questions. It's like I don't get to answer them very often anymore because I mean we're sort of doing different things, and so and time creates a different perspective. Like I have a different perspective on some of these things based on just simply the passage of time, and it's interesting to think about Bioware's history in our games and that sort of thing. It's been nice to chat with you. I know you and I have exchanged emails and texts and tweets and stuff for well over a year now. So I
Yep.
think it's awesome to have a chance to chat like this.
Well, very cool, and hopefully we can do it again. In which case we can focus more on the Beer Diaries. I'll needle you on that.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta get some more episodes for you first.
Yes. So thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks.